a massive twist in the title race once again. Welcome to this week's episode of 20 Minute Tims. Right, tell the truth. Who saw that coming? Well, one of us did.
Welcome to big school. Welcome to a title race, folks. Is that what we're saying here? Tough at the top, isn't it?
I know.
Pressure gets to you.
It is a bona fide title race. And Stephen, you said when we covered for Patreon the full day of action, the Glasgow Derby a couple of weeks ago, you quite prophetically said that you think there might be another disaster on the way after. She likened it to Brendan Rodgers, the slip when he was managing Liverpool, then the disaster at Crystal Palace that really cost them the title that no one really talks about so much, more than the Gerrard slip. You said, I think there could be another quirk on the way here.
Yeah, sure enough it arrived. I think it was inevitable though. I think there was so much focus on, right, the X team and Y team have to win X amount of games, right? So they need to win all their games. Celtic need to win this amount of games. Rangers need to win this amount of games. All those games are already won, and it's down to what happens in the derbies. There was so much of that. I thought, no, it's not going to work out like that. Don't get me wrong, there are twists to come. There is so much work to be done for Celtic, but it was very, very funny to see the first blinking, let's face it, from one of the teams, and it was a shocker away to Ross County. So yeah, I did say I've been boring anyone who will listen to me about it for a couple of weeks now, saying that I don't think it's going to be as simple as just these derbies. I think there's going to be another shocker for somebody.
Look, I agree, Melly. I think even from a Celtic point of view, I know we're going to be having a bit of a laugh about this, but even from a Celtic point of view, people are flippantly like, just win the next 4 games. Win 6 games in a row and the title's ours. I'm like, well, I don't know if you've been watching Celtic this season, but that's quite difficult. And if Celtic can take anything away from what happened to Rangers, it's you take your eye off the ball for 1 second, and before you know it, you're 3-1 down to Ross County.
Yep, I've always had a great affiliation with the town of Dingwall, so it was nice to see yesterday. But again, it just puts the focus back on Celtic. It doesn't really change too much. It just means instead of having to win our next 5 games, we now need to win our next 4 games. So it would be nice, but look, there's no easy games in there. We've got a game against Rangers. We've got Hearts who've beaten us. We might play St Mirren or Kilmarnock away. So it's not going to be easy for Celtic, but we've put ourselves in a good position now. Going after the game at Ibrox, we maybe felt it was a missed opportunity for us. It now, like I thought, really looks like a missed opportunity for Rangers. And Celtic are now back in the driving seat, but that can easily change in a bad half. So we cannot afford any slip-ups.
I promised during our At The Match podcast for the St Mirren game, for the the post-match section, I said, look, we're all going to be paying attention to the opposition's or the other side's games. It's inevitable. It's part of being in a title race. We're all going to be paying attention, but I promise you I will not turn it on until at least the 75th minute. We have a rule in our Discord, if you're not aware, that if anyone's not watching Rangers games, you're not allowed to turn it on because you will jinx it, right? So I promised everyone I'm not going to turn it on to the 75th minute.
You either watch it for the start.
Yeah, that's it.
Or you don't put it on.
That's it.
2-1, I couldn't even entertain it.
No,
it's far too long. They will get the penalty. 3-1 is I got in there.
I turned it on, and literally I haven't confessed this to the Discord because I'll be banished from there. But the first thing I saw when I turned Sky Sports on was Tavernier lining up to take a penalty. I've done it. How did
you know that was that game you were watching? Like in the replays from any game this season.
But I forgot all about it. See when Rangers were 1-0 up, I saw on Fort Mob, I think it was, I saw that they were 1-0 up, and I just mentally moved on from it. I was like, oh well, can do something else on my Sunday now, forget all about it. It was only when I started receiving messages in WhatsApp groups, a string of emojis, a string of laughing emojis, I thought, that's intriguing. I wonder what's happening in the old football. And sure enough, it was going absolutely tits up.
Well, I watched it, but as I'm saying, when the goal went in, I thought, this is just... But what kept me watching it was how bad Rangers were. And this isn't... we're going to talk about the St Mirren game, obviously. But, bear with us a wee minute, because I was quite surprised how bad Rangers were. And it only just dawned on me that their form's been pretty shonky. The last couple of weeks, I think they've won 2 out of their last 5 league games.
That's just the league, so 2 out of 7 in all competitions. If you include Benfica in that, which they were confident about, it's 2 wins and 7 in the last couple of months.
It's an iffy time to be hitting iffy form, Melly.
It sure is, and I think Celtic just need to go about their business now, don't they? It's given us a good opportunity, and it's not even breathing space anymore because it's one game. Any slip up one game could cost us, but it's great to see from them. And look, I think maybe, I don't know if they or we as a collective were all looking past this because there's been so much focus on this Dundee game, and now you should have just played it when you could, lads.
Yeah.
You should have played it at the first
it-
opportunity, and going into that Celtic game, that would have given you the chance to go back top of the league and put pressure on us. But now Rangers went into that game 4 points behind. They leave that game 4 points behind, and now they're going to a trip to Dundee, might be Perth, and they need to win it. And they've let in 6 goals in 2 games, and the goals they are scoring, 2 penalties, an OG.
A world day.
It's deflections. It's not as if they've been scoring goals. So I think it's pressure's on Rangers now.
The pressure is on Rangers. There's a couple of things. That Dundee game, they should have, as Melly said, they should have played it. They're starting to look a wee bit foolish now, especially Clement, who, that man to me is rattled.
Cracking.
That guy is rattled. We'll play the game on Mars if we need to get the fixture done. So why didn't you play it ahead of the Celtic game? I think for the league, that's a bit of a poor show as well, because match day 17 should be equal to match day 3, equal to match day 31, and it doesn't matter who you're playing, whether it's Celtic, Hibs, Dundee or whatever. They should have just played the game at the first available opportunity, as Melly said, and then the tie's over and done with. Now we've kicked it down the road for God knows how long, and I don't know, El Nino's paused it, and the Dundee microclimate means that it needs to now be played in Perth. So it's that to me is a really strange one. But the second thing is the complexion of this Glasgow derby now changes. Now I don't want to be guilty of looking too far ahead. It is true.
Because look, their form is a bit dodgy, but see their moral form right up there. Right? Moral form 100%, 1 out of 1. Aye. Actual form 2 out of 7.
Yes. But I'm doing what I don't want it to do. But if you look forward to Glasgow, the complexion of that game's completely changed now, because if all things remained equal and they were winning and we were winning, then a draw would do them at Celtic Park. They now need to come and win that game. They need to beat Celtic, something they've not done all season. They never took advantage of beating us at Ibrox in front of their own fans. They've now got to come to Celtic Park on our patch in their form and beat us, and that'll get clipped if they do. So I ran that right, and that ran that right into there. But it's completely in Celtic's hands. Brendan Rodgers said Celtic live for this period of the season. He says bring it on, actually, and that's really. I hope that's enough to steer us through. I hope this being distance and course, having done it before, having some level heads in there, I hope that's going to steer us through it.
I think it could be a big difference, and even if both teams, as much as we're kind of gloating about it just now, there's still no much in it at all. In realistic terms,
it's a bad half, isn't it?
Yeah, it still is the case. We went into that weekend with both sides thinking all we need to do is win all our games. Even after the switch of the dynamic around and what it means for the derby, the objective is for both teams just win all the games. It's still in our hands, so it's not that different. We've seen the last couple of weeks when Brendan Rodgers has been sort of exuding this calm and telling everybody about how this is when Celtic come to life, I think was the phrase he used. It's completely different from Philippe Clement over there, just flapping and talking absolute garbage and talking about Goldson trying to get his arm out of the way of the ball and storming off the pitch without shaking Don Cowie's hand and all that, and then coming out and apologising. It's absolute panic stations over there. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that the title is inherently headed in one direction because of the difference in the behaviours of the managers. But it's a fair indication on who's handling this better, and it's the guy who's been and done it.
It is insights. It's insights into the mentality of the two teams, and I hope that Celtic. Melly,
I was just going to let you finish there, but I was just going to say the mentality. My favourite bit is any sort of loss or drop points and instantly turn on Tavernier.
Oh. Yeah, the fans do.
Who else is going to get you out of any of these holes? He's the one that's still scoring in games, yet as soon as anything goes wrong, never a captain. It doesn't do it in big games, never a defender. The guy gets 20 goals a season for you from right back. I'd love to see them replace that, man.
Did you see the tweets that were doing the round? So I got them into WhatsApp, and it was source forwarded many times, and it was tweets. I don't know who it was posting it, but it was this is Sergio Perini.
I saw that. Morris Ross. He followed up with Morris Ross.
Morris Ross, Jerome Bonicel, and I think who was the other one? Muscat, Kevin Muscat.
Come on, man.
None of them were any good, but I still prefer them to your current captain. It was absolutely brilliant stuff.
I said that was so embarrassing. I mean, they are losing the rag a wee bit. But how long were they top of the league for?
A couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. I mean, that'll do that. That'll do that to a team that's not used to it. Whereas Celtic are just like, it's okay. And Brendan Rodgers is right. His whole thing has been, we write our own story.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, like, he's so right about the narrative. See, at this point in the season, you can look to Brendan Rodgers. Like, you see the stuff about the narrative. He's bang on, because see, when Celtic were in poor form, everyone was talking about how great a job Clement's doing at Rangers and how bad a job Brendan Rodgers doing and blah blah blah. Yeah. But now the shoes on the other foot, I'm not hearing an awful lot of criticism. I was myself surprised to find out that was Rangers' form, because it's not been spoken about. That is not the story right now. I don't know what the story about Rangers is, but it's certainly not they're in terrible form. It's starting to edge through. It's starting to creep through and break through that story. But I was very surprised.
We let them off with one, didn't we? They lost to Motherwell at home and nobody cared, because the very next day Celtic went out and had that very controversial game where we lost to Hearts. So they got away with that one because it didn't have any material impact on the title or on the league form at the time, or the league table. So we have let them away, but it's now only that they've lost another one that people are looking back to me and thinking, it's been a few weeks of this nonsense have been served up, despite the wild celebrations of a draw at home and all that. So the cracks are starting to appear.
I certainly wasn't feeling this comfortable watching the first half of the St Mirren game. I was gripped. I was on. No.
You'd have blown away otherwise if you weren't holding on to your seat.
I think I can write that first half off, because being in the stadium, the conditions to even sit were horrendous.
You can now. But at the time where you're like, it's going to be fine.
To be fair, I said to Stephen at half time, I think we'll be fine once the halves change here, because it just seemed as if they were running through treacle for most of the game, and passes were being passed, and then they were over-hitting or under-hitting, and it just felt like Celtic needs to get in at half time. And
any fast balls over the top, so any balls from fullbacks, like right in front of us, Greg Taylor was trying to pick up out Yang, and the ball was like sticking in mid-air and spinning back the way and falling out for a throw-in. Like, what are you supposed to do here? I know, like you talk about how Celtic have got greater resources and all, but one thing you always say about pitches is it's a leveller, and surely that applies to the weather as well. If it's in those kind of conditions, see them in a rubbish it was on the pitch throughout the game as well. Absolutely wild out there.
Just makes you think though, doesn't it? Celtic need to win, and all of a sudden the weather turns weird and starts to happen for them. I'm going to get Mr. Letizia on the phone. See if he can clear this up for us. I think he's got a few thoughts.
He will do, no doubt. But I think as soon as the second half started and Celtic came out and Reo Hatate spanks that into the top corner, you went, all right, maybe it was just the weather. But that's what we're saying. Look, we're on here having a nice time, but we can't get complacent, because all it takes is one bad half, like Celtic have been fond of this season, and it could be spin the other way. So we have to be careful here. But seems to be Celtic are picking up that wee bit of consistency now towards the end of the season. We've got Carter Vickers back, Reo Hatate, Callum McGregor, lost MAEDA, but it seems to be we're getting big players back and picking up routine victories, which we weren't doing earlier in the season. And it's nice to see just 3-0 St Mirren, lovely old job, up the road. Let's see how they do tomorrow, putting that pressure on. No doubt when the fixtures come out, whenever they do, that we'll be playing second and not first in most of them, and there'll be some changes to it. So I fully expect Kilmarnock away to be moved very much forward.
I've got a thing about the fixtures, but Melly touched on it. I think this sort of, it's mind-boggling to me, Stephen, that the rumour is that they're trying to engineer, as they often try and do anyway, not to have a Glasgow derby as the title decider as best they can. And you think to yourself, why? Why are we doing this? Is it because there was was there a bad game or something a couple of years ago?
Hugh Dallas, 1999.
That's what I mean. I'm trying to remember
literally 25 years ago.
When all this started. Like any league in the world, for me, I think, any league, I don't even need to kid on, I'm talking about the English Premier League, if the two top sides ended there was like 2 or 3 or 4 games to go, and the title was to be decided by the 2 biggest teams in the league in one game after 30 odd games, every league in the world would be rubbing their hands at the prospect of having this tie. Whereas Scotland, we seem to be, no, we can't have that. People don't enjoy that too much. You can't have that, you know.
The Lord knows. God forbid we would have a good fan experience for once. I know.
It's the best time to do it if there's not going to be any bears in there.
That's exactly the point I was about to make. I get that there is a lot of nervousness, a lot of trepidation around this fixture and what it could be a potential powder keg and all that sort of stuff. But it's not. One of the consequences of this allocation thing is that there's very little chance for like violence in the stadium or anything like that.
That was 6 years ago anyway. We spanked them 5-0 and won the league.
So you you can't legislate for what's going to happen in the city. There's no control over that. But as far as the actual game spectacle goes, very little chance that it's going to kick off.
Isn't it? This sort of engineering of fixtures to prevent the most fun is really a bit bitter and a bit sour, and it sort of sticks the crowd. But just let us enjoy the game, and if it's a title decider, let it fall the way it falls. And I don't think it's ever really that bad, is it, Melly?
No, I don't think so. I can't remember any bad times. I think the 5-0 game, it was fine. There was a chance under Neil Lennon where Celtic went to Ibrox. They could win the league but get beat 3-2. And of course, we've seen it back in '99 where it wasn't very nice. But as Stephen says, 25 years ago, and it just seems to be this, I'll move the fixture so it's not here and on this date, and in case this and that happens, and Rangers have got a few players that might get suspended if they get another yellow card, so we need to watch out for that. So it's all fun and games, but there is no fun and games, is there?
Anyway, back to the St Mirren game. Big talking point for me was, and is Maed out for the remainder of the season. That's a huge blow because he's been so instrumental since he came back.
Yeah, it's a massive blow, isn't it? Just at the wrong time. And for all Brendan Rodgers saying this is when we come to life, we've lost a major part of the team, of the setup there. Daizen MAEDA is so important, and it's like you don't worry about it so much because I think you can just about get the job done. We've got so many wingers who can be effective in their own ways, but no one quite like Daizen. Melly's making a face.
I know.
Yeah. So, but you know what I mean? Like, we managed to just about do it. Well, fairly handily, fairly comfortably do it without him against St Mirren. But it's that derby that's on the horizon. Don't you really? No, worry is the wrong word, but you're left ruin the loss of such an integral part of what Celtic do in these derbies. He's such a specialist when it comes to it. And Tavernier, I mean, as much as they had another shocker against Ross County, he will sleep easier the night before the derby, knowing that he's not going to be chased around by that demon round there, round that pitch. So it's a big blow. Celtic should still have enough to get, some sort of effect from the wings, whether it's PALMA, who carries a bit more of a goal threat than anyone else. Yang, another wasted opportunity for him. I thought he was quite poor, but there's no getting away from the fact that in these bigger games, in the semi-final and hopefully final, and then a derby in the middle of that as well, Daizen's a big miss for that.
Yeah, it's just coming up to that time of year where he comes into his own. We got a big reminder at the derby last week that this is what he does. He causes problems in his own way, and I think coming into the split where it's all big games, all wins, you'd want him in the team, and to not have him there is a blow. And then the fact that it might only, even if he's out for a few weeks, the season's not got long left. So it's a shame for him because that reminder that how good he was. And as much as Tavernier scores against Celtic, he doesn't do a lot in open play like we were talking about last week, and a lot of that's down to Daizen MAEDA. So, and we've seen, in games against Rangers that he scores, but also that be a bit of work off the ball last season in the semi-final for the cross for Jota. There's not another player in the team that does that. He just picked up the ball and nobody else was watching. Crosses to the far post and there's Jota. So will be a big miss, and it's that one position where Celtic struggled earlier on in the season. We finally got there with Kuhn and MAEDA, and then for one of them to drop out, we were worried about who was going to be MAEDA and who now. Kuhn's came in and done well, but on the other side, you could take your pick out of Forrest, you could go with Yang, you could go with Palma. They'll probably all rotate between the last 5-6 games of the season, because I don't know if MD will solidify the place, but it would have been Daizen's, but we have to soldier on without him.
I kind of want to talk about the Yang thing without slaughtering the guy, because I think people know that we've been back and forward with Yang for a wee bit, but the truth is he's had maybe one or two good games, and you sort of thought there was something there. But I do want to make the point, perhaps without slaughtering him too much, that I'm wondering if his inclusion going forward is warranted, because he is very sloppy on the ball, and with things so precarious and things so in the balance, you either need to have Palma on that left-hand side, or even now there's a case for the last 5 games, James Forrest. I think for me going forward, Yang's not really going to be the answer for us. He strikes me as a guy who's struggling with the basics of the game, right? And I'm not necessarily saying get him out of the club, but we've got a 23-year-old coming up or he is 23 already. Player,
22, I think.
Is he? 22,
he's 21 just now.
He's 22, there you go. So he's 22 coming up for or whatever. The fact is he's struggling with the basics of the game for me. He's good at dribbling. He's okay at crossing, but that's not enough, because we don't have space just now for a learning curve. And I think we're taking a bit of a risk with that.
Yeah, well, look, I can know it's big cliche and all that, but as the business end of the season, we've got massively important games coming up, and Daizen is a huge loss for that. So really, it is about mitigating risk, I would say, or
Who do
probably
you trust more?
yeah,
Isn't it?
yeah. I think that's a better way to put it, because when I picture Yang, and I like the idea of Yang. I like some of the things he does. He's lively, and you think, well, sometimes when the ball comes to him, it's going to go one of two ways. Either he's going to produce an amazing bit of skill, really good feet, or it's going to break down and the other team are going to attack. And that happened at least twice off the top of my head against St Mirren. So he plays a sloppy ball inside and St Mirren break away. It's by far the latter that I can picture more happening with Yang. I can't really think of that much he's created in a tangible sense when it comes to like setting up goals and scoring goals. There hasn't been an awful lot there, really, when you break down. I've not gone into the numbers or the stats of that. It's just when I picture going forward, what I would feel more comfortable with, and it's probably Palma. Now, Palma has his faults as well.
1 goal and 3 assists in 24 games for Celtic.
Right, okay, so I think he's made 30 appearances now, all in. But a lot of that will be off the bench, of course, but 30 is quite a lot to be able to make some sort of judgment. Maybe not a final judgment, but a judgment about the final 5 or 6 games of the season and what I would prefer to see. Again, Palma has his own faults, but when I think back across Palma's season, massively frustrating moments in there. Of course, things do break down when it comes to him as well. He had a couple of dodgy moments against St Mirren, but even at that, he had one chance, so the keeper tipped over the bar. That's a chance that's come from nowhere. It was a wee snapshot, and the keeper tips over the bar. I can't really imagine Yang doing that. No. And the one chance that did fall to Yang, he completely sclaffed it, went between his legs, and all of a sudden St Mirren are away again. But when I think back on Palma's season, I can think of big goals. I can think of goals against Atletico Madrid for one. Like, he's scored a couple in the Champions League. You remember him getting booked for for a goal that didn't stand and all that, right? But my point being, I would just feel more comfortable with Palma in the team because I can picture him scoring. I can picture him scoring at Ibrox, or not Ibrox, rather Hampden, same thing. But I can picture Palma scoring at Hampden and against Rangers, preferably straight from a corner against Rangers. But I can picture these things. I can't see it with Yang just yet. I'm not saying he's completely and utterly finished and would get him out the door in the summer. I think just for now, I think Palma's the safer bet, to be honest. I just think
what it is, Melly, is with Yang, with Scales, I think Brendan Rodgers got a lot of tolerance and a lot of a pride in his own ability to coach these players and improve these players and all that. And they're only going to get better playing. I think, though, sometimes that edges into a tendency to stick with things a wee bit too long. And we've seen it this season a couple of times. Players have played up until the point they've had a complete disaster and they can't play anymore. And then at that point, they sort of come out of the team. And I just think, I don't think Yang's going to cost us a game, to be perfectly honest. I don't think he's going to cost us a game.
It has cost his goals, though.
He has cost his goals. That's it. He has cost his goals. And there's a lot of sloppiness that other guys in the team sort of need to tidy up a wee bit. And I just think things are too tight for it at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not that I'm not a fan of him. I've just from the very start.
Skeptic.
I just think I just don't ever see this guy being a out and out Celtic player. I guess he might come on and look good in the odd game, but is he going to be a Celtic player for the long term? And I just never seen it. With Daizen Maeda, you can write off the shanked crosses because of everything else you get, and you get a lot for that. With Yang, I can't write off what I don't get because I don't get a lot on the other side of it. So I think with the sloppiness from him, it's basic football stuff that in a year's time, do I think he's going to be able to hold on to the ball more? Do I think he's going to be able to play passes inside and make them crisp? Do I think he's going to not give away the ball easily? No, I don't think that's going to come for him. I think what he's good at, he's always going to be decent at, that dribbling. But even that, it's headless chicken stuff a lot of the time. So I think with him, I've already said about I never see him being a first team player for Celtic. I don't think I've really changed on that. And looking at the fixtures now, whenever they come out, no matter what they are, that was probably the easiest game we're going to have for the rest of the season. The rest of them are all split games. We'll have to go away to St Mirren, the home game maybe against Dundee. But I mean, we're going to be in a lot of pressure, and if somebody is out there giving away needless balls, miskicking big opportunities, then I can't see it. And like Stephen says, I just can't see Yang making that difference. Whereas a guy like Palma, he has been out for a few weeks and he did look a bit rusty, a few poor touches in there, but he's on for like 15, 20 minutes and he has opportunities, he's involved in a goal. So you see what you're getting from him. It's a wee bit more direct and a bit more influence in the game. Yang has an influence in the game the wrong way for me.
What I would say in defence of Yang, and
We don't want to hear it, mate.
and indeed why I'm not prepared to like fully write. Not that it really matters what I think. Not that I'm prepared to fully write him off. He seems to be different to the other sort of squad players that we have, in that he is in there playing. He is in there playing, and Yang's starting games for Celtic. Yeah, granted that's in the event of an injury, but how many injuries do you think Celtic would have to have for Odin Holm to start a game, for O to start a game, for Lagerbielke to start a game? Brendan Rodgers, as much as we're saying he's maybe sticking with players too much, he's taken brief looks at these players and thought, nah, can he do anything with them?
Yeah.
They don't get anywhere near it. Whereas Yang is in there, so he obviously sees something in Yang, or he just wouldn't play. He would just play Forrest. I mean, you would, because I know that Forrest isn't really fancied to start games all that much. But if Yang truly was a complete write-off like that other mob I've just listed there, then you wouldn't see him. So again, that's tenuous. That's maybe a little bit, I don't know, hopeful in there, a little bit fanciful. But that's what is giving me a little bit a bit of pause to think, well, maybe he's got something in there. Maybe it's just all going to come together for him one day. And I know that's unrealistic.
I think Brendan Rodgers sees this as a bit of a sort of pet project of his, I think, along with Liam Scales. I think, look, patreon.com/20minutetims is where you can support the podcast. We do match podcasts, match reactions, in other words, for every single Celtic game over there, as well as loads of other videos and podcasts and writing. Patreon.com/20minutetims. If you want to try it, there's 5 games left of the season. Now's the time to sign up. If you like it, stick with us in next season. That'll be our 10th year, but check it out. Patreon.com/20minutetims. There's a link below us. People are freaking out at the prospect of Celtic making too many subs and the game being cancelled, Celtic Park being shut down, the league being thrown. I mean, to be fair, I'm not sitting here smug. I had no idea what was going on. There's a little known rule that if a team make a concussion sub, then that allows you, the opposition team, to make another sub to balance things out, which I think is very, very fair. That's fair enough. But I think,
because what Celtic, the biggest and most powerful and most resource team, needs is more subs. We've already got 5 with stronger squads than everybody else in the league. What we need is a 6th one.
But there's people freaking out, trying to get a message to the dugout and all that. Like, what are you doing?
I need to go back and watch it. Right, I've not heard this because I was at the game clearly, but I heard Peter Grant was absolutely losing it in commentary. I think he literally was trying to get a message to the dugout to cancel it. No, it was funny. Looking back on it, it was funny, but there was a moment round about us where we said there was a lot of confusion, and eventually everyone just settled into, well, somebody must know better attitude. It wasn't the end of freaking out and like trying to catch Brendan with their watch and all that. Like, you know, that. Like we sit as far away from the dugout as it's possible to get before you start coming back the other way. We were all waving our arms, don't do it. Because Forrest was warming up for ages, and just gradually everyone was like, many subs we had again? So there was a lot of confusion, and it even got to the point where everybody's like, what happens if we put on another sub here? Is it going to be like a 3-0 defeat? And all that? Imagine that's what they swung the league.
I'll tell you what, I guarantee in the bills of the SFA, after we made that sub, they're blowing dust off old rulebook. Right, make sure they've filmed in every single form. Make sure it says black ink in capitals. Did they use black ink or did they use blue ink? Oh, it's definitely black ink, bastards. Right, okay.
It was confusing, and again, it's what about the fan experience here? Because we are sitting literally in the stadium, not having a clue what's going on in front of us. So I think if something like that happens, could there not be a tannoy announcement just saying, look, concussion substitute? Because even I knew about the concussion substitution, it didn't count, but I didn't know it didn't count for the other team and they could make another sub. So I had no idea about that rule until it comes into force, and you're sitting in the stand getting these VAR decisions and not having a clue about them. You're sitting there getting substitutes made and you don't have a clue why we're allowed to make a 6 sub. Surely the fan experience is the most important thing here.
No, that's definitely not the way. Look, I agree, and I'm just pleased. I'm actually pleased this week that we don't have to talk about any refereeing stuff, no VAR stuff, no Super Vario world. We can just concentrate on the football. It's good that, it's obviously MAEDA's out. That's a big blow, but with one hand he gives, with one hand he takes away. We've got Reo Hatate coming in, looking back to his absolute best. Absolutely brilliant finish for us. Propelled the game on. I think he really pushed the game on.
Yeah, well, I said after the match in our podcast that I said that look, the first half was a non-event, really.
Yeah.
I basically just, like Melly, I was prepared to just write it off because the second half was much, much better. But sometimes it can get a little bit, I don't think that actually happened on Saturday, but sometimes it can get a little bit tense. We're in a title race and we're getting into nothing each. Regardless of wind, it doesn't matter. The scoreline is still nothing each at the same time. So I thought that we need to see something from the second half, and of course we've all got faith that Brendan Rodgers knows how to do that. But sometimes it's going to just take like a special moment from a special player, and that's exactly what we got. Just took the ball in and smashed it into the top corner. An absolutely brilliant finish, and we've got a great angle on that. So we sit on the halfway line, you just see it arrowing straight into the top corner away from you. A beautiful goal, so satisfying. It's one of those ones where you can't help but jump up and just sort of, like, make noises, basically. So brilliant goal.
It's kind of when you see him take the control and then hit the outside the right foot, it's involuntary. Your next reaction, isn't it? Because a lot of the time, being a Celtic fan, you see a lot of goals at Celtic Park and you sort of take it for granted. Even like the third goal in there's a just one of those. That's another one chalked off. But with that, when it's on a knife edge and it's so quick after half time, and just the sheer quality of the goal, you go, whoa, what a player. Stephen was talking about it after the game, like, because he's been out for so long, and you go, Reo Hatate's a brilliant player. But then when you see him do something like that, it just completely reminds you that I always say he's a brilliant player, but just to see that, and it's why in that first half performance, sometimes you just need to leave guys like that on the pitch, don't you? Because they can come up with that moment when all it took was a St Mirren player just to leave him for a split second, and it's in the back of the net, and then Celtic are away, and they probably never really look back after that. Right after half time, we done it a lot under Ange last season, and then it just gives Celtic that platform to build on, then get the second goal at a decent time, and just watching Hatate, like, this is what we've been missing. That guy that can do that thing just out of nowhere, just bang, back of the net, or play that pass that gets somebody in. He's a joy to watch, and you just have to admire it.
This is just how it works sometimes, and injuries are just part of it. It's just part of the season, but this is a completely different season if we can call upon Reo Hatate for even 25 games, even 25, 30 games is a completely different season. And I think I can only ever speculate, go off pure vibes here, but I think we are in a much better position. I think the league's basically over, like it generally is for Celtic going into splits. Basically, you barely even pay attention to the way the fixtures fall after the split, because we've generally got it wrapped up by then.
It changes the complexion, this whole entire Celtic team, the way he plays. He is another little cliches, like a new signing, but I'm so glad he's back, because he came back right at the right moment when we needed him, because there's Callum McGregor going out injured. Not having McGregor and not having Hatate going into this split would be
tiring Matt O'Reilly as well. If he's having to play every single second of a season.
No, he's not available.
No, it goes without saying. We've suffered. It's not an excuse. It's more like a reason that I think we've ended up in this position. But we've suffered really unfortunate injuries, and it's all been to key players. And we've lost another one, Daizen. We've just spoken about how important he is, but all along the way here, we've been missing Cameron Carter-Vickers, we've been missing Callum McGregor, missing Reo Hatate, now Daizen Maeda. It's been basically everybody all season. Every key player that we've got, apart from Joe Hart and Matt O'Reilly, everyone has had some sort of period out of the team. So Reo Hatate, I'm trying to find a way to say it that isn't just he makes us a different team, but that's the best way I can think of. We are a completely different team with Reo Hatate in it. There's all the different variations in midfield. You can play Bernardo and Holm. Daniel Kelly has chipped in with moments here and there. But Reo Hatate is one of our most important players, and we've basically been without him for the entire season. I
just feel so much more confident about the title with Reo Hatate in it. This is this title's a roller coaster, and it's been so long since we've been in a bona fide title race. But Rangers dropping points, Reo Hatate coming back into the team, all of a sudden I start to feel a bit more confident about the whole thing. Another injury melee that changed the complexion of the team was Liam Scales. He goes out. You've been very critical of Liam Scales, not just the only one. A lot of people have been critical of Liam Scales this year. How did you feel about this back four, this new look back four with NAWROCKI?
Okay, it was fine. I don't think St Mirren caused us too many problems. So there's one for you this week. I don't think they caused us too many problems into the second half. I think it was made a bit easier with the weather changing, but I thought it didn't give their striker anything to work off. There was one long ball over the top where thought he might struggle here and get outpaced, but he kept up with the guy, used his strength and just seen the ball away. So I think he did fine. He will face tougher tests, Miovski this weekend. So I don't know. I would pose the question to you. If Liam Scales is back this weekend, do you stick with NAWROCKI or do you bring back Scales? Miovski's been the tough opponent for him, but I thought he was good. I thought on the ball, he moved it very quickly, and it's something I really looked at the weekend. He barely has any time on the ball, and it just changes not just the complexion of Celtic, but the complexion of the other team, because it's not just leave Scales on the ball and see what he does. It's, oh, he's played that quickly, we need to move across. So I think, I don't know if he's got it to play the rest of the games, or you revert back to Scales. What do you think?
Well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if we weren't playing Aberdeen, then it's a slightly different question, isn't it? Because we've already seen NAWROCKI versus Miovski, and it was. So
have you answered your own question then? If you're not going to trust him in certain games,
it was a bit of a horror show, wasn't it? So, but that goes two ways. I'm making one of those wee diagrams, because he might be more prepped and ready for revenge and want to make good, or he might be sitting there thinking, "Oh God, I can't go up against this guy again. It's such a crucial time." If
it's the latter, then don't play him ever again, to be honest, because there is a danger.
Well, hold on, just let me put a button on my point though, because what you said, Stephen, was you were like, "I know next to nothing about NAWROCKI." You said it on, was it the pre-match at the match last week, the flagship? And I still kind of feel like I don't know NAWROCKI I know an awful lot about Liam Scales, and look, no, he's no one's favourite Celtic player, right? But we're getting to the end of the season. He's played almost the entire season for us, and he's handled himself fairly well in games, and I would be reluctant to completely just jettison him out of the team now, Liam Scales, because we've got NAWROCKI here, and that's principally because I know next to nothing about NAWROCKI yet.
Yeah, and for good reason. He's barely played, and even when he has played, he's maybe, I don't know how many games in a row he'll have played all season. His maximum's probably 2, 3 maybe.
Even then it was 65 minutes
the
weekend,
of course, and then he got injured and he's barely been seen since. So I don't think any of us really know what to expect from NAWROCKI other than the odd good moment, the odd bad moment.
I mean, is it pure bias to look at all Liam Scales has done this season, right? And then really with NAWROCKI, you're going off of the Aberdeen game. Was that the last, more or less, the most significant game he played? Or the last, whatever you've seen from NAWROCKI, right, includes that performance against Aberdeen. So is it just pure bias at this point to say, nah, Scales is out, NAWROCKI's in? Because all you've got to go on in NAWROCKI is very little, and one of them is an absolute horror show against Aberdeen.
Yeah, there's no avoiding the fact that Liam Scales has much more of a body of work to point to.
Aye.
But what I would say is that,
including games against Rangers,
Champions League as well. He's played the entire Champions League, so he probably is better equipped to be playing that. But I'm not particularly interested in the idea that you can't go changing it because we've only got 5 games left. If NAWROCKI is the best player, and I can't say with any authority that he is, because I just don't know. He's not played enough. But what I do know is that Liam Scales has been in there and he's been okay for the most part. That was very Brendan Rodgers. That was even deliberate there.
I don't care. That's my favourite new Brendan Rodgers.
Simply, I don't care. But I'm not really sure which way I would go. I think there's a danger. There would be a tendency in overdoing the Miovski thing, kind of like we did to Christopher Julian back in the day. Oh, he's terrified of Lyndon Dykes. I mean, he had a bad game, maybe 2. But we could overdo it to the point where really all we're dealing with is Miovski ran at him a wee bit. He backed off him far too much, and before you know it was a goal. Really, that's what happened. I think it'd be very unfair for us to paint his entire Celtic career in that light. And
it's up to him to correct it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it is a debate to be had, because we have all had our reservations about Liam Scales long term, but about getting the job done at Hampden on the day, I couldn't really make the case really all that strongly either way. I would be, maybe for different reasons, I'd be concerned about either one of them, to be honest. So it's far from ideal. What you would, in an ideal world, we've never had a single injury all season. NAWROCKI's just come in, settled in, he's been the new Starfelt, and he's played beside Carter Vickers the entire time, and everything's absolutely rosy going into the final few games of the season. But that's not the case. We have still several concerns about his suitability for this team.
Either way, you can make arguments for both, can't you?
Yeah.
But the thing with Scales is he got his opportunity due to injuries. Now NAWROCKI's got an opportunity due to injuries, so it's up to him to take it. And to be honest, I don't think he could have done much better at the weekend, so fair play to him on that. But I think this all rests on the fact that no matter who it is, they're going to look okay because Cameron Carter-Vickers is beside them, aren't they? And that's the most important thing for Celtic, is keeping Cameron Carter-Vickers fit and available for all these games, and we should be okay, because that was a game at the weekend we dominated, didn't really look like conceding, and it's no coincidence that Carter-Vickers is at the heart of that again.
Alistair Johnston is really coming out in a game recently. He was brilliant again.
Yeah, I thought he'd be man of the match in the stadium, but it was Reo Hatate. All right, mate, that's fine. Yeah. But I thought Alistair Johnston was great in this again. He seems to be coming into his own towards the end of the season. He's got, we know what he's got, that drive, that determination, but when he's adding in the quality playing, it seems like him and Greg Taylor have stepped up with the assists, and it just shows you, like, imagine, and I know it's unrealistic, but if Celtic had that sort of starting 11 more available more often, where they're not relying on players like Bernabe coming in and all that, then you could see, look, the Celtic team could have been a lot better. But Alistair Johnston and Greg Taylor give us that foundation. And
new contract for Greg Taylor.
Oh,
come on, it's long overdue.
Oh, we get such abuse for this, honestly.
Oh, it's long overdue, man.
Let us know in the comments why you don't think Greg Taylor should get a new contract, and be sure to abuse Jamie.
But I think AJ's coming on to a game now. It's a smashing cross for Kyogo as well. He pinpoint to him, and I think he looked great at the weekend. Second half, first half was difficult for everyone, but just coming on to a game, and the more you see guys like him, Carter-Vickers, Hatate coming on to games towards the business end of the season, the more confident you get.
Yeah. Which end of the season is this again?
Right, let me ask you a question before we wrap up, right? Why am I making this face?
And for the benefit of podcast listeners, he's making a tremendously smug, sort of shruggy little, muggy little smile.
Why am I making it?
Because even a broken clock is right twice a day.
And that means, Stephen?
Oh, you poked Adam Ida as your player of the season.
Backed my boy. Yeah. I backed my boy Adam from the first minute I saw a YouTube compilation. I thought
a 7-minute YouTube compilation featuring every goal he'd ever scored in his career.
That guy's got it. He's going to come up here. He's going to bully defences. He's got the physicality, hard worker, decent finisher. I have all these crybabies on Celtic Twitter, on Celtic forums, on Celtic podcasts, crybabies, Melly. Oh, he's
Norwich reserve.
Yeah. Reserve, is this fourth choice striker? Now look at his backpedaling. Absolutely. Oh, we need to sign. No brainer, pay 9 million. Shut up.
What's that, 7 he's got?
7 goals.
7 and 11, I think it is.
I get to decide what happens with Adam Ida. Not you. You don't know what you're talking about. But listen, Melly, sign the man.
Oh, sign them in to defend the crybabies.
Listen, money dependent. Like, money's obviously not. If Norwich want 20 million quid,
well,
come on. But I mean, if it's a reasonable fee, if we can afford it, we sign him, because his contribution here has been stellar. Got us out of so many holes when he first came in, when Kyogo wasn't performing. He stepped up and did the thing O's been incapable of doing. O's completely out of the picture now. Scored against Rangers at Ibrox, which is kind of a forgotten goal in the way that the game panned out.
Last minute goals in there as well. The double at Hibs. These are all massive. This is why we're in the position.
His contribution has been brilliant this season, and he himself seems quite happy at Celtic. He said he's never felt so confident playing the football. So I am. I've been backing the guy since day one, and I'm backing him now.
Yeah, and to defend the crybabies, I don't think MD was against Adam Ida itself. It was the process behind it. But
see, that's a get out into. That's what they all say.
You keep your wee one then. Have your one in 10 years then.
Thank you.
I think with Adam Ida, anything less than 10 million, I'd pay it. And I know people go, oh, I bet he might be second choice. Kerry's a good footballer, and it's been hard to find them. We've seen with Giakoumakis was a decent footballer, pushes on Kyogo. If Kyogo's not having a great game, you've got somebody coming on that can do it. Like with Giakoumakis, if Celtic were to go up against Rangers, and God forbid Kyogo couldn't start the game, I'd be fine if Adam Ida was in there. Would I be fine if O was in there? No, I wouldn't feel fine.
Unthinkable, isn't it, really?
Aye, so I think with the contribution he's made, if Norwich are willing to sell him, if he's willing to come here, and the fee is under 10 million, I don't think you can go out and go, I don't know, it's a bit much to pay. The guy's scored goals, he's done everything we asked. If we get into the Champions League, there's no reason not to go and sign him. I think he's one of the guys, the sort of profile that Celtic have had massive success with over the years. Not quite doing it down south. Maybe somebody that's lost their way a bit comes up here, makes himself a hero, and he's coming into the good years of his career. So I love him. I think he's a great option, whether it be starting or coming off the bench. And in this day and age, you need 2 strikers going into next season. There's going to be 2 extra European games. So, bring it on. Get the guy signed, man.
Definitely just sign him. No questions asked for me. I know there are limits. I know if you're talking 20 million, Celtic can't do that. I know that people would look at, but there's 70 million in the bank, that leaves you with 50. As if that's how it works. But you would need to be paying him 90 grand a week or something like that as the consequence of that. But obviously, jokes aside, there are limits to it. And even at 10 million, that would put something of some pressure on him, because then he would be the record all-time signing, right? So, but anything up to and including that, again, I would urge people to stop acting like it's their money. I mean, we moan at Celtic for no spending the money, and then on the other hand, we'd sort of roll our eyes at the idea of like 8 or 9 million being spent on a proven player for us. I think it'd be ridiculous, because the alternative is we bum around in these leagues where we pick up 1.5 to £3 million signings and they never work out.
We saw that before. We try, like, you've got O and you've got IDAH.
Yeah.
One was 1 point something million, and one is likely to cost you 10. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And it's, I can understand maybe we didn't approve or agree a fee as long as you held to that, and Celtic might want to hedge their bets at the end of the season and see how it goes. From everyone's point of view, you don't know what situation Norwich are going to be in. You don't know what situation he's going to be in. So there will be negotiations to be had. And it's starting to look very peculiar that Norwich swapped this guy out and brought Sydney Van Hooijdonk in. It's starting to look quite strange that happened, because by all accounts he's contributed absolutely nothing to their season. So
no. I don't think he's even. I think he's played something like 2 minutes in the last 8 weeks or something like that. Yeah, and
so
that's it.
I think Adam Idah to me is in the mould of a good Celtic striker, and also, as you were saying, having the two. Kyogo wasn't performing very well. Adam Idah came in, started to score goals, and Kyogo's improved. Now, are those two things related?
Probably what spurred them on.
Probably what spurred them on, but a bit of competition never hurt anybody, really.
Also, it's 2024.
Yeah,
we need to stop talking like this is mega money. Look, we want Celtic to be a serious club and challenging for at least not being a laughingstock in the Champions League. I think that's a pretty reasonable goal to set for the next couple of years. I'm not saying Idah's going to be the difference between us like being a Champions League minnow and like a competitor. What I'm talking about is this mental block we've got in our heads that you can't spend more than 3 million on a player. That's absolutely mental.
We need to start spending this Champions League money, because the whole thing is getting to the Champions League. Why? You get lots of money. What's money for? To buy better players. Why? So you can be ahead in the league. Why? So you can get into the Champions League. Why? So you get more money, right? We've had, because forget everything else, 2 consecutive league wins, 2 consecutive Champions League entries, got 2 consecutive big buckets of money from the Champions League, and contrived to be 1 point ahead of Rangers after 2 years. Get the money spent and stop this pish, is what I would say. And the first place you're going is you're going to Norwich to buy Adam Idah.
Can we have that on a banner? If you're in there in the banner making business, can we get the money spent and stop this pish on a massive banner facing the board, please?
That's what we need. So look, get Adam Idah signed. I'm sure there'll be plenty. He got 7 goals and 10 appearances for Celtic or something like that. Plenty more games to play. It's going to be super tight. 5 games left of the league. Patreon.com/20minutetims. You can join us there. Support us for the last 5 games. See if you like us. Stick with us next year for our 10th year in season doing the podcast. We'll be back next week. Thank you for watching and listening.